Hello and welcome to another command block tutorial. Today's video we're going to be creating a few special little gadgets that's going to make you feel like Batman using only commands in Minecraft Bedrock Edition. Now before we get started on any of the commands, I'm going to show you some of the stuff that we're going to be making. So of course, batarang, just a simple little throwable object. As you can see, it does a lot of damage. You can kill these guys in 2 hits, travels really fast, and does a lot of damage. Of course, Batman's most classic weapon. Then, of course, we have the ability to vanish in smoke with a smoke bomb. You see, we can pop this real quick, and we vanish into a cloud of smoke, completely invisible. Next up, we have a grappling hook gun that you can use to shoot yourself across the map. As you can see here, we can use this crossbow, and wherever we shoot it, it's going to launch us in that direction. Now, of course, if we get up high, we're going to need a safe way down. So we have this cape that we can hold, and whenever we're holding the cape, we're going to glide down through the air, and it's little particle effects that kind of look like your cape gliding behind you. And last but not least, we have a little sticky bomb here that will stick to walls. It's on a little fuse, you can see. You can hear it light off as soon as you throw it. It's on a fuse timer. It will blow up, sticks to walls, sticks to ceilings, and of course it's going to stick to bad guys. So we throw it on these guys, it's going to stick to them and blow them up. Alright, now let's get straight into the commands. So to start off, we have a few commands that you're going to need to do just at the very beginning. These are commands I don't always go over in every video, but basically anytime you're doing commands, you should probably do these commands right here. You don't need to do them in the command block. You could just type them exactly how I have here in the chat. Basically, these ones are going to make it so your chat isn't spammed with some command feedback. And you want to do this command while you're standing near your command blocks. This way they're going to work no matter where you are in the world. This is going to keep that area loaded. I can potentially do a bigger video on taking area in the future, but just do this whenever you're near your commands. That way they're going to work no matter where you are in the world. Another thing we're going to use is the scoreboard in this. We're going to use the scoreboard timer, so you want to type this into your chat bar as well. Scoreboard objectives, add timer, dummy timer. And that's very simply going to initiate the scoreboard that we're going to be using for the batarang and for the sticky bomb over there. Alright, so to get started off with the batarang, we take a look into the first command block here, and this is going to be adding timer to the item named batarang. It's just going to add 1. This is just going to be the timer. And important thing to note is we have this on a 0 tick delay. Then it's going to kill the batarang if the timer is 30 or higher. This is that way your batarang isn't going to go on infinitely. It's going to eventually expire. You don't have to deal with a bunch of items flying around your world outside the render distance. Alright, next we have the start of the chain, and this is going to be the teleport command. So we're going to execute at or as any of the items named batarang at itself, so that's what at s means. Then we're going to run the TP command. It's going to TP 0.3 blocks in the direction it's facing, so that'll be whichever direction you threw it in. And we have true, so that way it's not going to go through blocks because that would look weird. After that, we have this really long command. That's the damage command. This is going to make it so you actually damage the entities that you hit. So we're doing another execute at the batarang. As long as the timer is over 2, that way you don't accidentally hurt yourself. It's going to run the damage command for anything within 2 blocks, as long as it's not an item or an XP orb, and it's only the closest entity. It's going to deal 16 damage. Now, if you want to make your batarang do more damage, change this number, make it higher. If you think it does too much, you can lower this number. You can adjust this number to make it whatever you want. Then we have entity attack, entity, and then at the closest person. That way it's as if a player killed it when it dies. Alright, then we have another command. It's going to execute at whatever is not an item or an XP orb. It's going to kill an item named batarang within 2 blocks, the closest one, with a timer exceeding 2. And important to note, this is conditional. The reason we're doing this is so that way, if this damage command fires off, then it's going to allow the item to be killed by a nearby entity. This way it's going to die if it hits something. Now we're going to do something a little weird. And this command right here is a chain command block, but the command itself is exactly the same as this repeating command block. This block is exactly the same as this one, and this block is exactly the same as this one. And we have that repeated another time all the way up. So I'm going to go through the whole chain really quick just so you guys can see what it looks like. The reason that we are repeating the same commands multiple times within one chain is as it's teleporting along, this is going to make sure that it looks smooth even though it's moving fast. If we use a bigger number on the teleport command, it would move faster, but it would kind of skip over some areas and it would do a much worse job at actually hitting the target. So by repeating this 3 times, it's going to hit the target pretty well, but also look like it's moving much faster. And then finally, we have this little command at top. This is going to add a little particle effect to the batarang as it's running along. As you can see here, it has little particles trailing off of it, just to make it look a little bit cooler. And that's it for the batarang. It's kind of a longer one. The sticky bomb is a bit longer too, but we'll get to that in a second. Next up, we have the smoke bomb. As you know, Batman, when he's cornered or in a situation where he needs to gain a better hand, will pop a smoke bomb and vanish into smoke. So to do that, we have a few commands here. It's not as long as the last one. So this is going to execute at the locations we're using just at. Any item named smoke bomb is going to run the particle, knockback roar particle, which is what this little smoke bomb particle is. It is important for these items, the smoke bomb, the batarang, and the sticky bomb. The actual item you use doesn't matter as long as it has the correct name. And then up here we have the smoke bomb play sound random.fizz, which is the sound effect that you hear. Then we have another execute, and this is going to be the effect that gives the closest player invisibility. After that, we have something that's going to give anything that's not the player weakness for a few seconds. That way, you're kind of surrounded by a few guys, a bunch of zombies are surrounding you, whatever. You can pop your smoke bomb, and they're going to be disoriented by your smoke bomb. They're not going to be able to attack you for a few seconds. And finally, we just have killing the actual smoke bomb because all its effects are used up. So it's a little bit simpler than the batarang, but quite useful, especially when you get surrounded and you need to reposition. Next, we have the grapple gun. We're using a crossbow for this. So, very simple. Executing at any arrow is going to teleport the nearest player that's holding a crossbow in their hand directly behind the arrow. You don't want to be directly on the arrow because then you're going to get damaged by the arrow. So we have this little thing right here, these carrots at a negative 0.08. That's going to move you behind the arrow so you don't get hit. Additionally, this is 0 tick delay. That is also important. Now this command is exactly the same, and so is this command. They're all three exactly the same. It's similar to this one where you have it in a chain like this. This is going to make it a little bit more consistent by having these all in a chain. Even though it's the exact same command, it's just going to work a little bit better when you have it set up like this. Next, we have the little cape glide. Of course, Batman's famous for swooping down on enemies and using his cape to kind of parachute down, swoop down on his enemies. So I wanted to add that here as one of his abilities. So obviously for the effects, we're going to be checking if you are holding a banner in your main hand and there is air directly beneath you, you are going to get the slow falling effect. Very simple, that's why we're going to be slowly falling. So for the rest of it, you want the particles. We just have a bunch of particle commands here. I promise you this command does look really long. It's not actually as bad as you think. It's basically saying, hey, for every player that has a banner in their main hand, and if the block below them is air, right here, then move up a little bit from the player, so move up the height up a little bit, so 1.3, and then you're going to run this particle command. And that's what's going to give us the little cape-like particles. Now we basically have the exact same command here, except we have a -1. You can see here we had a +1 right here. Now we have a -1, so it's going to be on the other side of my shoulder. Then in this command, it's going to be negative 0.05 here, and you can see it's a little bit higher at 1.5 on this command. These are going to be a little bit closer to your shoulder, and this one's going to be exactly the same, but we have a negative instead of the positive. Then we just have one a little bit off to the side and a little bit higher. This is what's going to give you the little system of particles that are going to be behind you, kind of, especially when you're falling, it really looks like it's cape. And you kind of come down like a little cloud of darkness. Alright, and for the last but not least, we have the sticky bomb, which is personally I think my favorite of all of these. So another important thing to note about the sticky bomb is it does have a little bit of gravity to it. So I'm going to show you how we're going to be moving it first, and then we're going to add the rest of the sticky bomb components to it. So we have a few commands right here that are dedicated just to moving the sticky bomb. So this one is just going to teleport it forward. It's going to say, hey, if there's an item named sticky bomb, remember that could be any type of item, it doesn't matter. If you have an item named sticky bomb, teleport forward. And we have true at the end to make sure it's not going to go into blocks. Then this is going to be if the sticky bomb is near an entity, and as long as its timer's past 5, that way it's not sticking to itself, teleport constantly to the nearest entity as long as it's not an item or an XP orb. This is what's going to allow it to stick to mobs as they're moving around. It'll still stick to them and then blow up when its timer's up. Then we have this command, which is very similar to the first one, except we have facing -1, we have the carrots here, then we have -140. This is going to make it go ever so slightly down. Every time it moves forward, it's going to look ever so slightly down. This is what's going to give it the gravity effect that it has. And the last one is going to execute at itself. It's just going to TP itself like a 20th of a block higher every tick. This is going to prevent it from falling. So you can see when I have it stuck on a wall, it's going to stay in the exact same spot instead of falling. That's what that last command's for. Alright, so that's how it moves. So now we're going to go into how the actual explosion type stuff works, because that's, the important part of a bomb. So this is going to add a timer to the sticky bomb. This is going to be using scoreboards, which is why we have the scoreboard set up at the beginning. Important thing to note is that this command block is on a 2-tick delay. None of the other command blocks in this chain are, only this one. Okay, now after this, it's going to execute at any item named sticky bomb that has a timer 30 or greater, and it's going to set all nearby sticky bombs to a timer of 30. That way, if we have 2 sticky bombs kind of near each other, instead of the one sticky bomb killing the other, this way they're all going to kind of explode in a cool little chain. Next, we have for any sticky bomb that has a timer of 30, it's going to play the explosion sound for all players within a 25 block radius. After that, we're going to add a little camera shake here because it makes the explosion feel a little more real. So it's the same execute, timer for 30, and it's going to add a camera shake of an intensity of 0.3 for a timer of 0.3 seconds. Next, we of course need the particle effect of the explosion. So for same execute as all the other ones, we're just running a particle command right here. And then this one's a little bit different, so it's going to be the same execute, except we're checking if the timer is exactly 1. And if it is exactly 1, it's going to play a little fuse timer for all players that are nearby on a 0.07. That just basically slows the sound down a little bit, makes it sound a little bit better. So that's why as soon as I throw it, you'll hear a little fuse sound. And last but not least, we have the damage command that's going to actually make the explosion deal damage. So basically, at the sticky bomb, when the timer is 30, run the damage command for all players within all entities within 7 blocks. It's going to damage it for 30, which is a lot of damage. It's going to one-hit most things in the game. And it's also going to kill itself with the damage command, so that way you don't have to worry about cleaning up the bomb after it explodes. Yep, and so that is it for all of the little Batman gadgets that I've created here. If you guys have any questions, I really recommend you join our Discord. As my channel has begun to grow, it's been a lot harder to respond to comments, and it's also a lot easier to help you on Discord. You guys can send me screenshots, and there are other people on there who are able to help you. So if you guys are struggling with these commands, please check out my Discord. The link will be in the description. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed these commands, and have a good day. Bye. Hey guys, if you guys have any ideas that you'd like to see me do in a future video, or just any suggestions you'd like to see me try and attempt to make with commands, go ahead and leave that in the comments, and it might make its way into a future video of mine.